Hey everyone, my name is Billy Wink and I'm the CEO of HP Auto. And today I'm going to tell you the things I like about the 992 GT3. Now, my perspective is coming from a guy that likes the 997 and 993 cars, a little bit older generation, and some of the things I've found I can really enjoy and relate to on the 992 GT3. So the first thing, most people like me that are the old school dinosaur 997, 993 lovers, is the size. Is the car larger? Yes, it is. But surprisingly, it clocks in under 3,200 pounds. And when you actually drive the car, does it feel bigger? A little bit bigger, yeah, it does. But does it handle like it's bigger? Handles awesome. So the biggest complaint I see from the guys that like the older 911s is the size. It's not terrible. It's just, once you kind of open up to it and drive the car and see how it handles and performs, it doesn't feel as big, but it is a little bit bigger, but it's not a deal killer like it used to be when I wasn't a fan of the 992s until I started to drive it and get used to it and start to love it. So one of the things that I really like about this particular model is the swan neck wing. So for me, I'm an RS kind of guy, really don't particularly even consider buying a GT3, but I can appreciate the fact Porsche has made it more aggressive. If I'm buying, a GT3, I'm gonna spend extra money on RS. Now, there's a big deficit in these cars now, right? You're looking at 200 grand deficit between a non-RS and GT3. So I'm happy to see they actually put a swan neck wing on the car and give it a little more aggressive look. And it makes the car stand out and feel more like what a GT car should be. Another nice feature of this car cosmetically, I like how it's kind of got a slight ducktail wing here, but they did a good job making the diffuser in the rear end of the car a little more aggressive. So I definitely think it helps separate it from like what the GT3 used to be as more of a conservative GT car. So I definitely like that on the 992 as well. So another thing too that has grown on me a lot is the way the front end's laid on these cars, because you have the center mount radiator and then you've got the airflow coming through here as well. So it took a little while, but as a fan of the 3-mount radiator, I do kind of like the way the front end looks on these a little bit better after getting used to it, and it's definitely more efficient from an aero perspective. So another thing about the handling on this car is it's got the double wishbone setup like the RSR, which definitely helps the front end feel of the car. It is a little bit lower than the 991 as well. The sway bar is a little bit stiffer, and then the steering is a little bit tighter. So you can definitely actually feel a difference in the handling of this car, and it definitely feels a little bit tighter than the previous 991. On the 992s, I wasn't like a huge fan of the little stick gear shifter, so I am happy that they have like this, I don't know, it's almost like a manual transmission inspired shifter here. So I'm a fan of that, obviously. The other thing I like is on this car, as you can see, it's got the gloss carbon. I like the matte carbon, but I still appreciate the gloss carbon. It looks a little more authentic. And then the carbon buckets. So on the .2 GT3s, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm a fan yet of that design, but I like this design a lot. So those are probably like my 3 favorite things on the interior of this car. Is it still feels like a GT car with the shifter, the gloss carbon, and the actual carbon bucket seats. So the cup holder is also something that's kind of frowned upon, but I've actually gotten to a point where I like this little gadget. And if you are not wanting to have it, you can always just remove it. So growing on me a lot with the 992s. And then I do like how the buttons are set up here. That's pretty cool. It kind of feels like a race car, like the toggle switch. So those are just a few things I think really make the car a lot better than I thought it would be. The performance side of the car too, right? You've got the 4-liter, you've got 500 horsepower, you got 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. You've got 7-speed PDK, you got 7-speed manual. So it's not a huge difference over the previous GT3s, but what I can tell you is it feels a little bit more torquey. It feels like it revs a little bit freer, but it's not a huge improvement over those engines because there's not a lot left to extract out of this engine because of emissions constraints. And, Porsche is kind of at a crossroad. Do they keep developing this engine? But I can tell you right now, you could definitely tell a difference in the engine. It definitely pulls great. And if you're coming from a 997 GT3 like me, I'm super hardcore manual, but the PDK isn't that bad. They've made it very good. You've got where you can pull the paddles to be in neutral. You can double clutch like that. So, if you're worried about the performance on this car, it's pretty solid. It'll definitely put a smile on your face. The other thing I like is the simplicity. The maintenance is like a traditional Porsche. If anything, it's simpler. You don't have all the crazy stuff like you would with the older Porsche with the oil leaks and stuff because the car's obviously so new. And you're basically looking at filters and fluids. It's just a pretty simple maintenance schedule. And so far, there's not really any major issues documented with this car. So as a Porsche owner, one of your focuses is how easy is the car to drive. That's why we like Porsches, because we can turn the key and we can drive the car and not worry. So that is a big pro for me on this car, is I can just turn the key and drive. So hopefully this video gave you some insights. Me being old school and the old school Porsches, my perspective may helpfully share with you what you might consider and like about this car. So if you have any other questions about, comment below, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.